last time we made a very simple joint, a rabbet joint across the end of a board made to accommodate a board that we planed out. And I said that's the beginning of cabinet making. It's one of the beginnings. But sometimes you have a different situation. You need to hide the board, give it a joint surface, not across the board, but along the length of the board. How are you going to do that? Well, again, it's a very simple process. You can get very complicated. You can spend multi-thousands of dollars on incredibly complicated machinery. You can do it with other things, but we're going to do it with the most simple of tools. Basically, we need to mark out what we need to remove. So we need to have a groove, the width of this board's thickness, and we'll drop it down to whatever we need. How are we going to mark the thickness of the board? Well, again, we're going to our trusty marking gauge. As I said, you can buy nice, elaborate marking gauges. You can make the most primitive of gauges. It doesn't matter. The trick is to make them work. And you just set that little scriber right to the thickness of the board. That's what we want. So we'll scribe in from the edge the thickness of the board. Just a scribe line. In this case, I'll darken it with a pencil. Now we merely have to mark in the depth we want this way. And we'll make it the same as this rabbet, one we just made. I'll darken that as well. So again, this is what we've got to get rid of. Well, there are several ways of doing that. The simplest way, depending on the tools you have, the simplest way is simply to clamp down the board on your bench top or on any working surface you have. I'm going to use my holdfast, very ancient concept that works really, really well. There, clamp down. Now the simplest way to do that is simply to take a chisel and start chiseling it out. But now here's the trick. There is a trick to this. The trick is if you're going to use a chisel to cut that rabbet out, don't start here. If you start here and start pushing the chisel in or pounding it in with a mallet, it might split beyond the line. It might not go where you want it to go. So the thing is to start on the far end. Take the chisel. And just work backwards. You'll have to clean up that edge with a knife, chisel it out a bit more, and you can do the whole thing that way. It really won't take very long. But of course there are other ways of doing it. Just clean up that shoulder. Now one of the other ways of doing it that's a little faster and has better control is to use simple tools like a rabbet plane. Now these planes, that's about as simple a tool as you can get. It's a piece of steel held in a block of wood with a wedge. That's all that's there. And nice square corners. It's made for removing wood in circumstances like this. But it has no guide, no fence, so you can use your fingers, but it's tricky. Once you get it started, this little shoulder of wood that's left will guide the plane. So I'm just going to take a few minutes and just plane this down, and in a few minutes we'll just have a rabbet. Okay. Now I'm just using the chisel to rough out. You can see I can take big chips out of this soft wood. And of course, how I hold the chisel matters. I've moved to a bigger chisel. I'm using my fingers as the gauge. Grasping the chisel, this has the advantage of giving me some control, but it's also a safety feature. Don't ever start using your chisel like this. Chisel here, hand here. That's disaster waiting to happen. So I'm just going to nibble my way backwards. Now I've just used the chisel to waste away most of what I need to get rid of. It's just a lot quicker than using the plane for all of it. But now that I'm getting down close to my gauge lines, go back to our very simple rabbet plane. And by the way, these tools are ubiquitous. They were made in the many thousands. Many of them have survived. Many trades use them. They're easy to find and very inexpensive and so useful. Just take the plane and set it down, push it up against the side, curl your fingers underneath, and then just plane through. Check my line. It's something of a disappointing exercise to go to all this work and then plane beyond your line. But now here's something I'll tell you. You're just about to your line. You plane it down and you get a little string of wood shaving. That means you're just at your gauge line, just almost right there. There we are. Now the joy of a plane like this is not only can you do that part of the work, you can set the plane on its side and clean up the other side. Just a couple of shavings. Voila. Our board sets down. Couple of more shavings and drops into the rabbet on the side. Let's take it out. You can see how that's going to work, just like the rabbet on the end. The lengthwise rabbet can hide that surface. Soon you'll be building drawers, boxes, and all kinds of neat things, using the simplest of tools and educating yourself in the fine art of cabinet making.